Like, don't you think I could be the greatest sports journalist ever?
Mm-hmm. Just give you a chance. You haven't been shown yet.
What is up, you guys? It is another week of the Lachelle Show, and I am Lachelle Smith. We have a jam-packed episode this week. I'm going to continue talking about the NBA playoffs and what matchups I'm looking at going into the conference semifinals, as well as talking about some updated NBA news since we just had 3 Game 7s in the first round. I'm going to touch on a little bit of the WNBA preseason and the upcoming season, players to look out for, rookies to look out for, and what teams might surprise you. I am going to talk about the NFL draft and a few picks that I felt like were really big wins for teams, as well as maybe some losses and some question marks on some picks. So get ready for this episode and let's get into it. We are now advancing to the next round of the NBA playoffs, the conference semifinals. There were some picks that I was right about in the first round, but there were also some picks I was wrong about. In the Western Conference, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder facing off against the Los Angeles Lakers, the Minnesota Timberwolves facing off against the San Antonio Spurs. On the Eastern Conference, we have the Detroit Pistons facing off against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we have the New York Knicks facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to go ahead and give you my predictions early on. I do have the Oklahoma City Thunder beating the Lakers in 5. As much as I want to sit here and praise the Lakers and have some hope, and I said I had them winning the first round, which they did against the Houston Rockets, I understand how hard it is going to be for the Lakers to beat the Thunder, especially not having Luka Doncic on the floor. That's just a lot of points that they're leaving out there. I do believe that they're going to put up a big fight. I believe that LeBron James is going to go out there and do the best that he possibly can to help this team keep this series close. Austin Reeves is now available. I think defensively they've been a little bit better, but the keys for the Lakers is going to be not turning the ball over and trying to have control of the game offensively and hitting shots. Those are two things the Lakers have struggled with in kind of just the season, going through really bad shooting slumps and not being able to just not be careless with the ball. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's not allowing the Lakers to be a little bit more physical with them and also making the others have to beat them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is most likely about to win MVP, so you're not really going to stop him, but you do want to try to make it harder for him, which if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder, you understand how important it is going to be for the bench to show up. In the next series, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Spurs. I have the Spurs winning this series in 5 as well. The San Antonio Spurs are better than what people realize, and I don't know if everyone just doesn't want to accept that because they are still somewhat of a young team, but the Spurs team is special. There is something different about them, and I'm confident in what I've been seeing from them. One, from Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, but also just their depth in their second unit that they have, putting a lot of trust in the young players like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. But I'm also looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves after how they played so well against the Denver Nuggets, while also not having Dante DiVincenzo available. Anthony Edwards didn't finish that series, and they also did not have Ayo Dosunmu towards the end of the series, and they were still able to beat the Denver Nuggets without having at least 3 key players, which shows a lot of heart of the Timberwolves. Now, Anthony Edwards was first projected not to be available for games 1 and 2 of the series, and now it looks like he might be available for game 1, which definitely gives the Timberwolves so much help against the Spurs. They need to play fast, play in transition against the Spurs, and really be able to use the athleticism that they have in their guards. I trust Minnesota's defense against San Antonio to make those shots very difficult, but if they're going to want to really dominate this game, I do believe that this is a game where you have to allow Rudy Gobert to be the person in the focal point, especially putting pressure on Victor Wembanyama, not allowing him really out of the paint to switch on guards because he is still a threat there, but really making him have to play big in the paint. On the Eastern Conference side, the Pistons beat the Orlando Magic in 7 after being down 3-1. I had picked the Pistons to win despite being down, and I still have a lot of faith in this young team, but what worries me about the Cavs matchup is that the Cavs have more scorers and more shooters, that being Donovan Mitchell, but also James Harden, and I do believe they have more size than the Pistons with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. With the Pistons, they're a little bit undersized, if you ask me, against this Cavaliers team, at least in the paint. A lot of pressure is going to be put put on Jalen Duren to really be available in this series. He can't have another series like he just had in round one, and he's going to have to be able to use his size, his strength, to try to play a little bit of bully ball with Evan Mobley down there in the paint. I do believe Cade Cunningham is still going to be the focal point in this series, but the Cavaliers at least have a chance to really truly just outscore the Pistons. I do have more trust in the Pistons defense to get stops than I do the Cavaliers defense, especially after watching the Cavs in the series going 7 against the Raptors, where if you ask me, the Raptors truly still had the better defense, more intensity. They were more aggressive. They just couldn't make any more shots towards the end of that second half of game 7. But that goes back to what I said. The Cavs have a lot of scores and the ability to get out and put up a lot of points. I do have the Cavs winning this series in at least 6. And I do believe that the Pistons could force this to 7. And I don't really have that much trust in the Cavs because at times they are a team that disappoints in the playoffs. But with this Detroit Pistons team, I wonder, have they woken up after that first round? They are young. That was their first playoff series win since 2008. So I wonder if now they've gained some experience of what it looks like to be down in the series, have to come back. They have expectations, number 1 seed in the East. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons win this series. Do not think I'm saying that Detroit can't, but I am just worried. So I'm going to give it to the Cavs winning in at least 6, and I can see the Pistons forcing a 7. The New York Knicks Philadelphia 76ers series is the one I'm most excited for because I did not think the Philadelphia 76ers were going to come back to beat the Boston Celtics. A lot of teams were choking 3-1 leads in the first round. I had the Boston Celtics as the favorite to get out of the East, and watching the Philadelphia 76ers just straight up beat the Boston Celtics in game 7, but be able to extend this series tells me a lot about this 76ers team and the job that Nick Nurse is doing. And they outcoached the Boston Celtics in game 7. And a lot of credit to Joel Embiid. He had an emergency surgery to get his appendix removed. He was out about 2.5 weeks or so. He comes back. He plays in game 6, plays in game 7, and he was such a big factor in both of those games. But really, game 7, the Boston Celtics had no answer for him. He was playing like a big man, like a center, not all that positionless basketball stuff we be talking about. He was out there dominating. But you also have Tyrese Maxey. You have VJ Edgecombe. I worry for the New York Knicks defensively because I already saw against the Atlanta Hawks how it was easy for a team to pinpoint and start to pick on Jalen Brunson. And in this entire offense of the 76ers, there's a lot of mismatches that do not work in Jalen Brunson's favor. I don't believe he's going to be able to guard VJ Edgecombe. I don't believe he's going to be able to guard Tyrese Maxey. And I know someone's going to say, well, you have Josh Hart and OG Anunoby. Well, who's going to guard Paul George? There's a lot of mismatches for the Knicks where either Josh Hart's going to be getting in foul trouble very early or OG Anunoby, and Jalen Brunson is going to have to be tasked in stopping one of those guards in VJ or Tyrese Maxey. And I just don't know if he could do that for a full series. Whoever wins this series will be the team that goes out of the East to represent in the NBA Finals. I'm telling you that right now. I'm very confident in that. I am going to pick the Philadelphia 76ers to win this series in 7. The reason why I'm picking the 76ers is that Joel Embiid, if he chooses to continue to play like the big man he is with dominance, this will be a series for them that they will be able to take control of and allows them to continue playing how they've been playing. But Paul George is a big factor in this team as well. For the New York Knicks, for them to have success, Jalen Brunson can't just play isolation basketball. He's going to have to be able to get everyone involved. But the biggest thing is going to be Karl Anthony Towns. You can't get the Karl Anthony Towns that wants to be a three-point shooter. You need Karl Anthony Towns, the big bodega, who wants to bang there in the paint, in the post with Joel Embiid. This is going to be a big man's game if they make it that way. You can't have Joel Embiid ready to sit there and bully Cat in the paint, and then Cat comes in turn and wants to have a shootout. That's not going to work in this series. Karl Anthony Towns has to be in that paint. He's going to have to play big man basketball against Joel Embiid, not settle for shots, be aggressive, get the ball, call for the ball, and they need to also be playing so much through him to set that tone of aggressiveness and physicality. If the New York Knicks can get stops on those guards and allow Cat to be the focal point, they have a good chance of also winning this series. Despite me picking the 76ers to win in 7, I understand also how good the New York Knicks are. I do think the first round also woke them up a little bit as well. But I am excited to see what Mike Brown is going to do, how he's going to be able to adjust in this series. So right now, who I have with my predictions, the Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs would be in the Western Conference Finals, and I have the Cavaliers and the 76ers going to the Eastern Conference Finals. So let me know who you have winning the series. Who do you have in the Western Conference? Who do you have in the Eastern Conference? While we're talking about the teams that did make it to the next round, there are some teams that did not, and because of that, it comes with some changes. Jamal Mosley, the head coach of the Orlando Magic, has been fired. This firing does come after the Orlando Magic lost in Game 7 to the number 1 seed in the East, Detroit Pistons. They were up 3-1 in this series, and it looks like the Orlando Magic felt like the answer was to fire Jamal Mosley. Now, I'm not going to say that this season was specifically all on Jamal Mosley, but I do think that there were things that, as a team as young as they are, he could be pinpointed as fault for. I will say this, though. The Magic before Jamal Mosley, the year prior, only had 21 wins. He gets them to 45 wins. After that, he is taking them to the playoffs for the last 3 years straight, even though they were losing in the first round and they just had the number 1 seed in the East on the ropes and they couldn't finish the job. Is that all his fault? I don't really know. You look at this season for the Magic, it was a little bit up and down, inconsistent. They had a lot of different rotations and lineups because they were dealing with a lot of injuries. A lot of reports were saying that maybe he had lost a little bit of the locker room. A lot of the reports pinpointed that, yes, him and Paolo Banchero had a very strong relationship, but Paolo Banchero was also getting frustrated at late game situations, taking the ball out of his hands in the stretch that they started to go through. I could see both sides, right? When you hear Paolo Banchero after they lose Game 7 say that they need to have a winning culture and that it's not good enough that they keep losing in the first round, he was asked, do you think that this team can be in the NBA Finals? And he said, no. Because we haven't even proved that we could get out of the first round. And I can applaud that honesty. It's one thing to be confident. It's another thing to be honest that, no, this team does not have enough just yet. And he is right. Is all that fault on Jamal Mosley? No. Is some of that fault on him? Sure. But a lot of that fault to me is on the front office. You got to get Paolo Banchero way more help. And he needs way more scorers and shooters. That's what we saw in the last few games of the Orlando Magic, where they kind of just, no one else can make a shot. It was just Paolo Banchero. Yes, he did not play good in Game 6 where he ends up going 4 for 20, and that's not a great stat, but we did see him grow in this series, someone that we call a playoff riser. So I don't think it was all Jamal Mosley's fault, but it does seem as though this young team had already hit their ceiling with him and that it didn't look like it was going to get any better. I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite to get the Orlando Magic coaching job is Sam Cassell. If you don't know Sam Cassell, he is a assistant coach that has been around a long time, but he is also a very respected former NBA player, 4-time champion, 3 times as a player, 1 time as an assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. He is the guy that has a very proven track record of developing young stars. He played a big part in developing Tyrese Maxey when he was with the 76ers. He played a very important part in developing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when they were with the Clippers. He even said that he told Doc Rivers when they traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that was going to come back to haunt them because they had just given away an assassin. He is somebody who understands young talent. He understands how to develop them. He even has went on record to say that he guarantees that any guy he works with in a year will have a leap. And Paolo Banchero needs a coach that's going to help him take that next leap this next season. It is a non-negotiable, but also the other guys on the roster, Anthony Black, and a lot of the young core that they have, they need a coach that can help them all take that leap. Sam Cassell is that guy, but also he's a proven winner. He understands what it's like to win as a player. He's played every role in the NBA at this point. He knows what it looks like to be on a winning team, a team with good habits, good culture, and going through the playoffs. They have to be taught how to get out of the first round. They have to be taught what it means to finish the job. Sam Cassell, to me, should be priority number 1 for the Orlando Magic if they are serious about winning. While I'm talking about changes, there are no more firings right now in the NBA, but I do believe that some trades are going to be coming very, very soon. I am looking at the Denver Nuggets. I give Nikola Jokic no excuse for the performance that he put on throughout this first round against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't really want to hear anyone try to make excuses for him. If you are a superstar, we put you on that pedestal. It's okay for you to take the criticism and the critiques that come with losing in the first round against a Minnesota Timberwolves team that didn't even have their entire roster and had 8 guys available to play in Game 7, and you still could not be a factor in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to let that go that Rudy Gobert sat there and won that matchup throughout this entire series with Nikola Jokic. It's just that simple. Because of that, everyone now is saying that it's everybody else that didn't help Nikola Jokic. Well, if that's the case, then that means trades are going to be coming. I do believe Jamal Murray's name might be in conversations for trades. I think some teams that need some shooters, need guard play, might be calling the Denver Nuggets to see what's available. I do believe some teams might be asking for Aaron Gordon as well. I do expect some changes there because at this point, this Denver Nuggets team has hit its ceiling. Ever since they won that championship, they really have not looked the same. And they made a lot of changes even after that. One, also firing head coach Mike Malone. And I didn't really see a big difference in how they played in this playoffs with their new coach than what they did with Mike Malone. And now they are back to the drawing board. Nikola Jokic said something very good after their first round exit. He said, if we were in Serbia, we all would have been fired. Now, if he's saying they all would have been fired, what does that tell you about the team? I expect some changes. I expect some phone calls. And I do believe that that's going to have to be the best thing for the Denver Nuggets. The championship window is closing with them. And it's closing with a guy who's a 3-time MVP. Staying on the side of basketball, we're going to talk a little bit of the WNBA. The season will be in full swing on May 8th, but if you've been watching preseason, you've been getting a glimpse of everything. I'm going to tell you who are my favorites to win Rookie of the Year. And I have been loving watching Olivia Miles and what she's already been able to kind of show some glimpses of and flashes of with the Minnesota Lynx so far. You could tell that Cheryl Reeves definitely just wants her to be her. She wants her to go out there, play the guard position that she plays so well with all the creativity and flair and finesse that she has. And I really believe that she could have such a big rookie year for the Minnesota Lynx, especially not having Nafisa Collier out there for quite some time while she's still rehabbing her ankle. I will say one rookie that I do believe is going to make that Rookie of the Year race really hard, and it is Flau'jae Johnson. I sat there and I told you guys that Flau'jae Johnson was all about where she went, the right fit, not necessarily the pick, where she did get drafted to the Golden State Valkyrie while she was there during draft night, and then a trade that was already pretty much cemented prior to the draft was then given to the Seattle Storm. And what she's been able to do for the Storm so far in preseason and what she's been able to show, you could tell that she's going to have high energy. She's going to really thrive being able to get out in transition and run in the speed of the W and being able to finish at the basket, but also just getting her shot, being able to create space, being able to be creative. She has just like a great pop of energy out there for the Storm, and you could tell that they're already excited for what she's been able to do. A lot of people have been talking about AZ Fudd and what they've been seeing in preseason. She just had the post-game press conference where she talked about how she's been kind of confused in terms of the officiating. She said she thought the W was more physical, but it seems like they call fouls for everything, which there is some truth to that because the preseason calls have been really bad. I think the one thing that I'm excited to see her grow into when the season starts is just the speed and the pace, but being able just to pull the trigger and let her shot fly in those tiny pockets. But you can tell the Dallas Wings are made in the image of their coach. He wants them to get out and run. He loves the guard lineup that he has. He wants them to be able to get their shots, get to the basket, but also play very fast-paced basketball. And I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do in this season. I don't know if this version of the Dallas Wings is a playoff team just yet, but once Arike Ogunbowale is back in the rotations, she was overseas and now she's back with the team, I'll really have a better picture of how much success this team can have, but they do look better already. One team that surprisingly people are already starting to count out is that the Las Vegas Aces aren't going to be able to win a championship this year. And I'm going to tell you right now, watching preseason, seeing who they've added, this team is very much equipped to be right back in the finals. Do not fall in the trap of thinking that somehow they've lost a step. They have not lost a step. They've added exactly what they needed to add. And the one person that I think has been a great addition is Kennedy Carter. Another guard in the likeness of Becky Hammon, who's going to be aggressive on defense, a trusted spark with a second unit or the first unit, going to have the ability to go out there and make plays and score, but it fits what the Las Vegas Aces need and what they've been also adding throughout the culture. Just a feistiness, an aggressiveness, a fight that Kennedy Carter has is something that the Aces adding is so important to the run that they're going to make. I already have them as the favorites. Again, I do believe teams are going to give them a run for their money, going to make it difficult. But that team, they're not losing much. I don't know why everyone's thinking all of a sudden they've lost a step. There is no step to be lost when you have one of the greatest players ever to play the game in A'ja Wilson on that team. So out of respect, they're my favorites to win it all. I am excited to see how the Indiana Fever play Raven Johnson. I was very high on that pick. I said that was exactly what they needed. A guard who is selfless. She has the ability to make winning plays, comes from a winning culture, but it is her defense that is going to make her stand out so much on that roster. Stephanie White already loves her. I've said it before. She raved about her when she was commentating South Carolina games, and now having that guard that you could tell she trusts. She trusts Raven. She understands that she has the IQ for the game, but just the speed. I think offensively, Raven's going to even shine more because she's able to play really out in transition and play a little bit faster where she doesn't have to think necessarily about setting players up. She also has the green light to go make plays and go score, but she, again, is a true point guard that believes in running an offense, getting everyone involved. I expect that the Fever will play Caitlin Clark more off ball, and I think that is the best success for them going forward, especially trying to make a deep playoff run. She cannot be the primary ball handler, and I don't know why that's also hard for people to accept. That doesn't negate how good of a player she is. It's saying that if you want to maximize who she is, it is best for her to play off the ball. And when you have a guard like Raven Johnson, I don't think it's going to be long until she might be touching that starting lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play out. There's been some free agencies, some trades. I'm so excited for the Atlanta Dream. I think that's a team that I have going very far in the playoffs, and I'm really, really excited. That team is going to be fun to watch. So make sure you're paying attention to those Atlanta Dream games, because when it comes playoff time deep in the season, that's a team that everyone's going to have as their favorites to win it all, and rightfully so. The WNBA season is here, and it is about to be so much fun. We got some new faces on some new teams. We got new teams that got a little bit different energy, new coaches. It's about to be one of the best seasons of the W, so make sure you're watching. Give me your predictions. Call in to the Lachelle Show. Leave me a voicemail. Speakpipe.com, the Lachelle Show. Tell me what teams you believe are the favorites to win it all in the W this year. Who's your favorite for Rookie of the Year? Who do you believe is going to be winning all the awards? Who's your too early MVP prediction? And what teams do you feel are not really going to meet the moment this year? I want to hear from you. While we're talking about teams meeting the moment, let's talk about the NFL draft. The NFL draft occurred about a week and a half ago, and I was delighted with some of the picks. Number one pick that I was happy about, which I predicted on my social platforms, was the Dallas Cowboys trading up to get Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. And when I first talked about Caleb Downs throughout the week, it was a lot of people trying to almost overthink the obvious pick. And I think when you were such a good player for an extended amount of time throughout your collegiate career, it's easy for people to get bored with exceptional. Caleb Downs has pretty much been amazing since he stepped on the field as a true freshman for the Alabama Crimson Tide. He goes to Ohio State, wins a national championship, and for the last 3 years has been one of, if not the best safety and one of the best defensive players in the country, where everyone starts overthinking the pick. They're saying, oh, well, he's not a super athlete. He's not super fast. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. In this draft class that to me was a little bit weaker, you have to be very specific and particular about what blue chip talent you wanted, and Caleb Downs was exactly that. So I remember telling someone in the comments, if I was Dallas, I would be trading up to try to get Caleb Downs. And lo and behold, that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys did. And I know someone's going to say, well, what's the big difference? They traded up one pick. But that one pick is a big deal, and I'm going to tell you why. They were worried that somebody else was going to be able to come and grab Caleb Downs. So sitting there and moving away from the pick that they originally had gave them the opportunity to get him, even if it was one pick up. Okay, they ended up trading with the Miami Dolphins, and they were able to move up from that 12th pick to the 11th pick, and that's how much they wanted him. Caleb Downs is going to be a franchise-changing player for the Dallas Cowboys. Even Micah Parsons told him during his NFL draft show, he said, "You are the guy. Understand that, walk in it. They are going to be looking at you to help them win." I will say also, with that entire draft show that Micah Parsons had, he had wide receiver of the New York Giants, Malik Nabers. And I disagreed with something Malik Nabers said about a draftee that was drafted in the top 4.
He hasn't been the number one on the team that he's been on. I mean, you have to be a number one on the team that you're coming from to be a number one receiver that the team that you're going to. Because they're going to trust you a lot to be the first person that they throw the ball to, the first person they count on to win the rep. You have to be that. You can't be the second.
I understand that Malik Nabers is an amazing wide receiver. He did suffer an injury and was out for the rest of the season. So I understand his perspective, but I didn't really agree with what he said. I have been very high on Carnell Tate from Ohio State. I've talked about his ability, especially his route running, deep ball ability, being able to get in those routes. He attacks zones, soft spots in the zones that he sees. He's a quarterback's best friend, and it's easy for people to be so focused on Jeremiah Smith that it was easy to disregard what Carnell Tate was able to do in that type of offense. But if it's one thing you can trust about Ohio State wide receivers, that they are given a certain prestige that maybe other universities are not given, and that is why it causes this number one option debate. That doesn't matter at Ohio State. It just doesn't. If you look at the last top picks out of Ohio State in the wide receiver category, a lot of them were not number one options. Jackson Smith-Njigba was not a number one option at Ohio State. Neither was Emeka Egbuka. I mean, there's enough that you could look at and say some of these guys were number 2, number 3 options. If they went to another school, yeah, they would have been number 1 options, but they wanted to be at OSU, and that showed itself. Carnell Tate did not have to be number 1 option at Ohio State to be successful. That's the whole point. But he will be successful with the Tennessee Titans. I was so happy that the Titans moved in that type of spot that they were in at that 4th pick, because I thought Carnell was going to drop to like that 6 or kind of in that top 10 range. Maybe the Browns were going to make a push, but the Tennessee Titans understood what they have. They have a young quarterback in Cam Ward, and the best way to help your young quarterback is to get him weapons. Carnell Tate is exactly that. I do expect that him and Cam Ward are going to do extraordinary things. Everyone who's sitting there saying that they shouldn't have took him so high, by the end of the season, probably week 6 or 7, you're going to be wishing Carnell Tate was on your team, but now it's going to be too late. We're talking about a Titans offense that has Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator. Say what you want about Brian Daboll. Maybe he wasn't the best head coach, but he is a great offensive coordinator and has a proven track record of helping quarterbacks develop and also scheming up an offense that utilizes wide receivers. He was a big reason why the New York Giants drafted Malik Nabers. And he sat there and said how much of an asset he was going to be, and we saw how he was able to use him throughout his rookie season. So understand that the Tennessee Titans are going to do amazing things with Carnell Tate. I thought they had a very, very good draft. Another team that I was really happy about was the Kansas City Chiefs. They sneakily was able to get Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU that I raved about during the draft process as the best cornerback on the board. And I talked about his man-on-man coverage ability. He was one of those cornerbacks that doesn't get a lot of penalties. He could play in zone. He could come down and tackle in the runner's box. He does a lot of great things. And I was shocked that the Kansas City Chiefs moved up. And everyone was wondering what they were moving up for. This is after they've already traded away Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams. And that was one of the departments that they knew was going to be a big weakness for them going into this season. So what do? You go get a premier cornerback in Mansour Delane. They said that they didn't want him to come visit Kansas City during his official visits because it was going to alert a lot of teams that they were interested. So they kept it to just a Zoom. And you know it's something when Spagnuolo tells him, we're sorry that we didn't talk to you as much as we wanted, but we didn't want anyone to know that we wanted you. And them moving up signaled that Mansour Delane is going to thrive in the defense of Spagnuolo in Kansas City. It's going to be so much fun to see him play in that type of structure, in that system. He's going to be a guy that we're going to be talking about for a really long time. Two teams that I also was very impressed with, the New York Jets had a great draft. They ended up getting the edge David Bailey, ended up also getting tight end Kenyon Sadiq, and was able to get in the first round Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana. They had a spectacular draft. You could tell that Aaron Glenn and crew are doing a great job trying to build this team in the likeness that they believe makes a lot of sense. And I can see that from what they did in the draft. You also have the Philadelphia Eagles that traded up to go grab Mekhi Lemon from USC, another amazing pick. Somebody that signals that they most likely will be moving on from A.J. Brown. The Cleveland Browns also had a great draft. I thought it was amazing that they went and got Casey Concepcion. He's going to be a great asset on the offense that they're going to be able to run, especially with Todd Monken at the helm. I do believe that he is a type of coach that likes to get his wide receivers active. And in speaking of that, I will also say that the Baltimore Ravens did a good job in this draft as well, being able to really tool up in that wide receiver room. There's a lot of diversity and versatility in that room that I think is going to really help Lamar Jackson in this upcoming year. And that was really amazing to see. Out of all the good things that I'm saying about all these teams, I do have one team that I'm still scratching my head about, and no matter how many times people try to convince me that it made sense, it still doesn't. The Los Angeles Rams, with the 13th overall pick, drafted quarterback Ty Simpson from Alabama. And I know Rams fans are trying to say, well, you know, the best time to get a quarterback is when you don't need a quarterback. And everyone keeps trying to say, well, it could be like how when Brett Favre was with Green Bay and they drafted Aaron Rodgers, or when Aaron Rodgers was at Green Bay and they drafted Jordan Love, and those things are all not the same. They're not the same. Ty Simpson, for a lot of people, wasn't even in the top 20 of this first round. And somehow you go 13th overall to the Los Angeles Rams. And it started a conversation because we're talking about Matthew Stafford, who just won MVP last year. Matthew Stafford, who went toe-to-toe with the Seattle Seahawks. And if his defense was better, most likely could have been in the Super Bowl again. It didn't make a lot of sense to get Ty Simpson. I understand wanting to get a bag up before the guy that you have in front of you retires and you're left trying to figure out who to get. I also understand that the Rams were not going to have a higher pick than this in the next upcoming draft, but it's Ty Simpson. That's the problem of the pick. Ty Simpson could prove us all wrong, and when he finally is ready to take on being the starter, then so be it, and he excels. But right now, it is still something that is questionable. I will say this, that there's more to the story. Ty Simpson's family is very close with the general manager of the Los Angeles Rams, and that there was conversations prior that pretty much the Rams wanted to take him, and they were very quiet about that. It is also being reported that the Los Angeles Rams, Les Snead, wanted all the prospects during their draft visits to be very quiet about meeting with the Rams, and that included Ty Simpson, so they didn't alert other teams. It also seems as though that the Rams GM always wanted Ty Simpson, that this was something that was even talked about at the Rose Bowl, so they had pretty much determined this. Sean McVay said that he went ahead and alerted Matthew Stafford to this, and he made it very clear in the press conference that this is Matthew Stafford's team and that Ty Simpson will be competing with Stetson Bennett to be quarterback number 2. So they have made it clear what the pecking order is. They understand what it is. I still understand everyone's trying to say that it's a good move, but I just don't know if it still makes sense to me because it's Ty Simpson. We talk a lot about how, Malik Neighbor said, Cardinal Tate's not going to succeed because he's never been a number one option. But Ty Simpson at the quarterback position is actually very important to be the number one option at some point. He spent majority of his collegiate career sitting behind somebody. This was the only year that he was really a true starter and didn't really excel. Could have been about injuries, offensive line, but he didn't do that much that wowed everybody in his first start. start. So to only have a first start of your collegiate career and then now you're getting drafted 13th overall to the Rams to end up being the protege to Matthew Stafford is just not something I'm really buying. I do wish Ty Simpson the best in his career. I hope it works out. I hope he proves us all wrong. But that is one of the picks of the draft that I'm still scratching my head at and still trying to make sense of. Tell me what you think about the NFL draft. Did your team draft well? What team do you wish would have drafted a little bit better? And does the Rams picking Ty Simpson at 13 make a lot of sense to you? Let me know in the comments. Also call in and let me know. This was another week of the Lachelle Show. I'm always going to express my gratitude. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this week's episode, taking time out of your busy day, your schedule, your lives, to listen to me as you go throughout your day or your week. That gratitude, the thankfulness that I have for every single listener will never go unnoticed. Make sure that you are commenting, subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on any platform and make sure that you're staying up to date with everything that's going on with the Lachelle Show. Remember to call into the voicemail, you guys. I want to hear from you, your questions, your opinions, your hot takes. Maybe you want to disagree with me about something. Maybe you want to agree with me. Remember to call in. Speakpipe.com/The Lachelle Show. It doesn't take too much of your day, I promise you, because I really want to hear from you guys even more. But again, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You will be hearing from me next week.